moving on to the Bundesliga, I remember a question from one of our Ask OTC listeners who suggested that this is the league that's the most intriguing this season, Nicky, given what happened last season. And for those who don't know, the perhaps unexpected happened in Bayern Leverkusen, a relatively, smaller team in the Bundesliga, won the league and beat the mighty Bayern Munich as well. As intriguing as that is, and there's a lot to talk about around this, I don't think it's going to be that easy for any team to take that title off Leverkusen from their initial showing, in any case, this season.
Well, I think, am I right in saying Andy was there? There was certainly a familiar story in the Super Cup where they were losing in the 88th minute, I want to say, and found the equaliser, one on penalties, and they just can't keep getting away with it. But they do. Look, the reality is this Bayer Leverkusen team hasn't changed an awful lot from last season. They haven't had to lose any really fundamental players. And they've most importantly obviously kept Xabi Alonso, who's the guy who turned them into this unbeaten juggernaut. Unbeaten, I should say, with my Italian hat on for a second, all except for in a Europa League final against Atalanta. There's every reason to believe they can continue at that level. I suppose the only real question is, do they have, I'm being far too Italian, but do they have the pancia piena, as people talk about in Italy, the full stomachs? Do they feel still hungry enough to go after it and get after it the way they did last season? Because Bayern Munich will be very good again.
Yeah, I was there at the weekend, Nicky, and talking of hunger, that was the main feeling I got from that Super Cup final. I mean, the thing is, the Super Cup, so the equivalent of the English Community Shield, league winners versus cup winners, although obviously Leverkusen won both, so they played Stuttgart, the second place team. That's right, not Bayern, Stuttgart, the second place team in the Bundesliga. They're always sort of half tilt, is it really a trophy sort of moments. But this didn't feel like that for two reasons. One, whenever Leverkusen and Stuttgart get it on, it's must watch. If they were playing each other again this weekend, I would be telling you to watch it in Game of the Week, because the best games last season in German football were between Leverkusen and Stuttgart, even if the ones between Leverkusen and Bayern felt more significant to the wider world. Because Stuttgart are, to underline, not just a team that, like Bayer Leverkusen, engineered a 40-point positive swing last season from the previous season, which is remarkable that one team did it, let alone two. So they went from relegation playoff to finishing second in the league, which is astonishing. But they did it not in the way that you would expect a team like that to do. So you would expect a team like that to, work out how to defend properly, maybe nick teams on the break or the rest of it. Stuttgart, under Sebastian Hoeneß, they want to boss possession. They had the third highest proportion of possession in the Bundesliga last season. And this really feeds into the second bit, that the manner of how Leverkusen won this, and not just the late goal, but the fact they've been down to 10 men from 35th minute when it was 1-1 at the time. Martin Terrier, one of the new signings, got sent off for a really pretty horrible studs up challenge. From that point, it was difficult for Leverkusen, even more difficult when Dennis Undav scored with his first touch. And then Leverkusen are in a situation where they're trying to recover a deficit with 10 men, with a player less, and against one of the teams that's the best at keeping the ball in the Bundesliga. So that was going to be really difficult. But despite the fact that Patrick Schick, who is a target, even if he's not necessarily a target man, comes on, they never once lumped it up there. They were like, well, actually, we can just play around you and eventually we'll find an opening. And they nearly did a couple of times. And then Schick finishes off this amazing move. And the fact that he scores the equaliser, still Jeremy Frimpong probably should have scored a winner in stoppage time and put quite a simple chance wide the post after another really good move. The confidence that Leverkusen have, that sense of not just, you talked about, Nicky, they can't keep getting away with it, can they? Well, I talked to Lucas Fradetsky, the goalkeeper, about this in the back half of last season. And he said to me, well, logically, we shouldn't be able to do it. Logically, our luck should run out at some point. But I spoke to Nathan Teller about it at the weekend, and he's like, well, look, everything the coach tells us to do works. It's that simple. And so if we keep doing it, logically, it's going to keep happening. And that is what they believe now. There was never a sense of we're not gonna recover this. And so for this thing that should be just an unimportant little trinket that maybe you put in the guest bathroom or whatever, the Super Cup actually turned out to be really important because of the way they won it. Because they were like, yeah, we can still recover like impossible situations. And the roar in the stadium when Schick equalised, the roar in the stadium when they won it, and the way the players celebrated when they won it, they were sort of saying, okay, this club's been going for 120 years. And, 3-4 months ago, we'd won 2 trophies ever. Now we've won 5. That is saying that we are surfing the crest of a wave and we are going to stay up there as long as possible.
I've got this image in my head because I had a friend when I was a kid whose dad had one of those fake, do you know, like the Billy Bass mouth, like fake trophy fishes where you could press a button and it sings. And that was in their bathroom, their toilet downstairs. And I just have this image of like going into Xabi Alonso's house, and instead of the Billy Bass mouth, there's just the Super Cup there waiting. I think it's just really, it's almost less about Bayer Leverkusen. I think what you said about the players just believing that, well, when Xabi Alonso says it, it turns out he's always right. It's like the opposite side of the coin to what I said before about the Napoli players. Just, it's in their bones that when things go wrong, they're all going to go wrong. I think winning does breed winning, right? It gives you that confidence that actually just things will be all right because they've always been all right before. And once it becomes something you actually internalize and believe, it's self-fulfilling. But you look at Bayern Munich and they have made some interesting additions, obviously with Michael Olise, with Palhinha, the middle part of that team, which is the part that perhaps was least functioning, is going to look different. They've got a new manager, Vincent Kompany, and they've still got, presumably, Harry Kane scoring the goals. Although he did have a difficult Euros, you're going to assume he's going to come back and score heaps of goals for them. It's just hard to imagine that they won't be closer this season.
Although, having said that, Andy, Leverkusen have made some signings of their own, maybe not as, not as celebrated as the signings that Bayern have made. But what do you make of Martin Terrier, for example, and Alex Garcia, and indeed Bolosian?
Well, the last two were great on Saturday. Bolosian looks the part already, even though he's still just a teenager. It's hard to believe he won't develop under Alonso. Alex Garcia, I thought, was man of the match, and he's going to make a huge difference to them. Terrier's got a load of potential, and he's a little bit older than you think. So this is really his last chance, really, to step up to that sort of level. And he's entrusted Xabi Alonso to help him do that. But I think really the fact that, as Nicky says, they've managed to hold on to their major players. Like, okay, Jonathan Tah could still go before the end of the window. And they could make a few adjustments. Spoke to people at the club, and they're quite clear that it's probably not done yet, and we've got to bear that in mind. But I agree with Nicky. It's about the Bayern response as well. Now, I think it's sort of swung one way to another, because at the start of the summer, when they were struggling to get a coach on board, it was like, well, this is chaos upstairs. It's just a joke, and Bayern are going to be the same as they were for the last couple of years. And that's been kind of obscured by the fact that they've made these eye-catching signings, that they've got Olise, that they've got Palhinha, who was these are players reinforcing the midfield that they really needed to do, but they've still got some other problems to sort. They've started to slim down. Of course, they got rid of Mazraoui and De Ligt, but again, it doesn't feel like it's finished yet. They really wanted Xavi Simons, didn't get him. He went back to Leipzig instead, and that maybe tells you that I feel they need that bit of craft in the centre of the park. And of course, the bottom line is, how good's Vincent Kompany going to be? We just don't know that. I think there are two ways of looking at it before the actual Bundesliga season has started, and that's saying, well, if you're being sympathetic, you can say, well, he played great football in the second tier with Burnley and with better players. Maybe that's something that he could do for Bayern, and that would be very welcome. Obviously, the other half of it is, he's a coach who got relegated from the Premier League, who was about their 9th choice, which are both facts. So we can't really know how that's going to turn out. I think it's amazing that the two biggest competitors to Leverkusen, at least on paper, are Bayern and Dortmund, two clubs with significantly higher budgets than them, but two clubs led by coaches now unproven at the level in Kompany and Nuri Sahin, even though they've both done quite interesting things and they looked interesting in their resounding DFB Pokal wins at the weekend. And of course, all the pressure is on. The pressure isn't on Leverkusen to defend it. The pressure is on Bayern and Dortmund not to make such a mess of this season. That's where the pressure is. They've both made significant signings. Now I know on paper, Dortmund haven't spent an absolute fortune, but when you look at the wages, they're paying Valdemar Anton double what he was on at Stuttgart. They paid Guirassy a massive signing on fee as well as big wages. Then they signed Maximilian Bayer for a load of wedge. I mean, they are in a position where they are under pressure and they have put pressure on themselves as well. So Leverkusen and Xabi Alonso can look at it and say, look at them running to catch up with us. Let them try.